Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of PharSide Pholios. I am your host, Monica Lee, and we are excited to be celebrating wonderful winter writing during this month of January. So we were glad for those who are joining us live, as well as those who are going to catch us by replay. So we're continuing our series of interviews with some amazing author interviews. So today we have with us Kai Lee. She's originally from Iowa, but later located to Alton, Illinois, and St. Louis, Missouri. She was an imaginative child. If you start reading her books, you can tell the wealth of imagination that she must have had as a child. She had an addiction to books at an early age, sharing stories with cousins as a teen, and writing books didn't seem like something you would pursue, but storytelling became a major part of her DNA, with the goal of sharing tales that entertain and add color to the gray literary landscape of our world. So definitely her work is something that adds color, light, and life um, to our literary world. She has made her master's and a doctorate in candidacy in counseling and currently resides in St. Louis, Missouri. She likes to cook and dabble in Photoshop, loves romance, fantasy, all things vampires that have reinforced her world building gifts and her talent in her craft towards her series called Sin Eaters and companion novella Rebel Guardians, as well as the steampunk horror adventure Oni's Tears, which we're talking about today. So she's also released some contemporary and passionate series of dealing on the romance in the romance world. So she dabbles across genres. She's multi-talented, multi-dimensional in her writing. Has been featured in the HWA award-nominated horror anthology Sikora Daughters and sci-fi anthology The City. So we welcome to the far side our guest author today, Kai Lee.
Hello. Hi,
Thank
everybody.
you so much
Hi,
for
Monica.
joining us today.
Nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you, Monica.
All right, we are going to get into this book, Oni's Tears. Your book introduces readers to a different genre, steampunk. So, how would you characterize it in comparison to some of the, other genres like sci-fi, fantasy, um, mystery, and the like?
Well, steampunk is ultimately part of those umbrella genres.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a subgenre of the speculative fiction genre of steampunk. Ultimately, it relates to steampunk. It's the same world, same genre, except that steampunk focuses on the African diaspora, Black folks from all over the world. And it doesn't necessarily have to focus directly in England. It doesn't have or Europe. It doesn't have to focus on anything Eurocentric. The only thing that it has to focus on is that the steampunk elements running around Black lives, Black culture, Black things. So typically, it does have to be in the past, in the Victorian period, but it can have magic. It can be in an alt reality. It can be whatever. Um, so that's how steampunk. That's what steampunk to me represents. And I was coming in new to it, so when I wrote Honest Tears.
So, what drew you into that particular genre? You know.
As I said, I came into the steampunk world. I
Hmm.
was familiar with steampunk because of Will Smith's movie Wild Wild West. I love that movie.
Hmm.
It was goofy, even though it was corny, and I just enjoyed it. You know, some people say it's bad, whatever. I enjoy some of the elements of it, and I love seeing Will Smith in that world of seeing us black folks getting ready to do those kind of things, running around on pure steam fired trains, flying machines, all kinds of things with the gizmo guns and all of that. It was fun, and so I said, "Oh, when Milton, his name, I won't mess up his name. I'm sorry, Milton, right now because I'm having a brain freeze because I'm nervous right now." So Milton Davis,
Mhm.
uh, he was doing a call out for steampunk, and he wanted to do this big steampunk anthology and things. So I hopped on there, was like I saw what he wanted to do, and he had came up with this theme and storyline. And so I gravitated to it because it looked really cool and looked really fun, and I wanted to test myself because I had never written in that genre at all. But I enjoy fantasy and kind of things. So still as a new writer, I wanted to test myself. So I hopped on the bandwagon and did that. Unfortunately, the anthology didn't come together as a whole, so I still had the short story on hand. So
Mhm. Now, Oni's Tears began as a short story. So, what was that process of expanding the story into a whole novel?
that was just accidental and something I just sometimes as writers we have a whole bunch of WIPs, so writing in processes, different stories on our computer, and we get tired of seeing them in our files sitting there not doing anything. So Ani's Tears, I really liked it. So what happened was I took that short and I had another. There was another short that I had that was actually picked up in another anthology that I got accepted in that was similar as a similar world, but it wasn't steampunk, and I
Mhm.
wanted to bridge the two together. And so what happened was with that anthology, half of that story, which was originally really long, got edited down. And so there was a
Okay.
big chunk that I really, really, really liked from that story that I wanted to figure out how to save it. And then one day I was like, oh, these tears. So what happened was I fused the two. And that's how Honest Tears got a little bit longer because
Mhm.
ultimately my weird mind said, you're creating this vast world that's interconnecting together for the reader that's going to expand into so many different things for my basically own Kylie's multiverse with books. And so that's how Honest Tears got a little bit longer. So I bridged the gap between the two. So if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I like, just, hearing about the process, especially if, you've you know, got a series of like you've done short stories and then now you've got a novel, and the approach is sometimes, different to in that writing process. And so how you're sharing how that happened definitely is a highlight for our listeners. So looking at this being a series, book one of the series, you define paragon. Um, will the paragon, play a crucial role throughout the series, or is this just like a single time appearance? Um,
Because well, ultimately with Honest Tears,
mhm.
I don't know if I'm going to continue with the book because of basically sales. So
Okay.
right now, the ultimate idea was I was going to continue. So yes, the Paragon story, the idea of Paragon was going to continue on because it's the part of the link to the whole overall series of what I was going to do or what I may continue to still do.
Okay.
So yes, the Paragon was going to continue on through the whole series. Yes, the idea of a Paragon. Mhm.
So if you, in making the decision, okay, am I going to continue this series or I'm going to launch off into something else? What
Mhm.
would be some, I guess, factors, in making that decision for you?
Um, Ultimately, it came down to sales.
Okay.
And people's interest in the story. You surprised me because this book has been sitting for a long time, and so when you reached out to me, I was like, "What? Somebody's reading Honest Tears?" That's how long it's been sitting there with no just dust. So I was happily surprised that it looks like that it was getting a little bit of traction there. So with you reaching out, that kicked the gears in and said maybe okay, I may eventually go ahead and do a part two to continue it on because there was some interest. I do have a couple of readers that kept saying we want to read more about Ani, yes, but ultimately it was you know I can't if it's only a few.
Mhm.
It's a lot of work being a writer, and it's a lot of work coming up and trying to come up with these magical worlds only for it to be a few people to read it. Where
Mhm.
that if I do something like that, I can just put it on my website for you all to just read for free. And that's the kind of mindset it is.
Okay, got you, got you. Like the numbers have to make sense. So
Yes.
that's so for all of our aspiring writers,
The numbers have to make sense. And it's
the
not about
numbers have to
money,
make
it's
sense.
about readers. That's all it is. It's not about really money, it's about trafficking. Because trafficking is important for authors. It is.
It is, it is. So the numbers definitely have to make sense. So without giving the whole story away or giving the story away, can you provide our live and replay audience kind of premise of Ani's Tears?
Ani's Tears. Well, it starts off as a story. Um, it's a once upon a time type of story. You have a grandmother telling a story to her grandchildren and her grandchildren's friends about basically um, the story connected to their town that they're in, their sleepy little town. And Ani's life is connected to the family, and that Ani ultimately is this young girl she's 20, coming into her adulthood, still trying to figure herself out, who she is, her connections to others outside of her family. And her ultimate goal is she's been trained and raised to be a protector of this magical artifact. And she wants to do that, but she wants to do it on her own terms. But she wants to be respectful of her family cultures and things. And in the midst of all of that, while she's learning her family legacy and learning her family responsibilities with that, this entity comes and shakes up her world, and it shakes up her family, and some losses happen, and she has to protect this, and she has to go after the loss, and it takes her on this steampunk adventure. It's a dark fantasy, but it's full of magic as well in a steampunk world.
All right. So you've got among your works, you have speculative fiction with the Sin Eaters series. Um, you've got romance novels within your writing, um, Christmas kind of love, holiday wish kind of love, Juneteenth kind of love. Uh, in romance. So, what about Ani's Tears makes makes it special to you? Why is it the story of Ani special to you?
Well, I always fall back to fantasy and dark fantasy. It's just my thing. I don't, as adults and as children, we all, especially now during this pandemic, we're having to deal with so much. And
Mhm.
growing up, I always like to escape.
Mhm.
So these things are my escapism. And so that's my natural being. And when it comes to writing, even when I'm trying to write something contemporary, like my love, trust, and pleasure, and love, lies, and pleasures. There's even notes of magic in there somehow because it just naturally comes out. It's just whimsical in me at times. So it's with Ani's Tears. It's not that big of a difference, except that it is because it's for me when I'm writing romance, it's harder because I can't go all the way into magic. I can't do it because it's supposed to be strictly
Mhm.
contemporary, no magic. But when I'm doing romantic, or like para romance, and
Mhm.
infuse a pair of romance into the dark fantasy books. Like Honest Tears, there is some romance in there, but it's nothing major. It's just crushes, possible.
Mm.
Will she, won't he, or whatever. um, and that's on purpose because it's a coming of age. And so I lost the point. But so it's not. Honest Tears wasn't difficult in that kind of sense for me. So it's just my natural gauge of things.
So, I mean, in Honest Tears, you talk about, you know, coming of, this idea of coming of age, was something, we learn about, family, or some lessons that are learned about family, or, dealing with, using strategy, or, um, dealing with, I guess, all of the different things that happen with Ani during her process.
Well, I don't know if you all. I like to just keep it in current. If you've seen the Kanto, you see
Mhm.
the dysfunction going on there. Yes, it's not the same because Ani and her father have a close knit bond,
Mhm.
and her family adjacent as well.
Mhm.
And I don't dwell into it that deeply, only because the action has to happen in the short. So, but with Ani, she still gets frustrated because she's still a young girl with her
Mhm.
father telling her what to do and stuff. Like we all do. I'm grown and it still happens. So, so the lessons there is on it's the like life milestones and the generational bridges that you end up learning as you grow on what you
Mhm.
take and what you don't want to take as a young person to survive when you're going out into the real world. How do you take these tools that you learn and implement it into your own life for survival? How do you navigate and see what works for you and what doesn't? How do you use those tools to save people's lives in this instance? How do you use it to save your own life? How to use it to embrace who you are and then still uphold and embrace and love your own family values and cultures at the same time. That's what.
Mhm. So with this being like book one, of a potential series, um, can readers expect to see, um, for these characters that they've connected with in book one, to, a possible second book?
Mhm. Oh yeah,
Or
definitely. Especially with how it ends, definitely.
yeah.
Because it's like you have Ani and Midnight running off together, having to do things. And then you spoke about the Paragon. Um, it's a breakdown of you're gonna keep seeing them because they have this mission that they're gonna do, and then what they're doing, what they set out to do, they don't even realize there's a bigger picture to it all. So yeah, you will see them. Yeah.
So, as a speculative fiction and romance author, what is the challenge in writing and publishing for such a specific niche?
Finding cohesive readers that stick with you, and finding readers in general of color that want to read your books, because I come across a lot of people with what I write. The age gaps is really difficult in trying to find readers. I
Okay.
don't write YA. I write little touches of NA, but it's really adult. And
Mhm.
so when I get adult readers, a lot of my readers are really male and they really attach to it. And then in the beginning with Senators, it was half and half, but it's really male now. And so I don't get a lot of engagement with all my readers and things. So that's a difficult thing on how to figure out that balance there.
Mhm.
A lot of the older readers are like, I don't want to read for it like that. And so I'm trying to figure out, still to this day, and you see when Senators came out, how to engage them into reading that. It's even though I'm listed as a horror writer, how I write it in
Mhm.
my opinion, it doesn't feel horror, but
Mhm.
it still can be considered horror because I'm not doing like Stephen King kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, what I'm doing is because it's wrapped up into the fantasy and things, and then there's always a moral clause and trying to fix things up. Kind of like it's. I don't want to say it doesn't really stick with you because it does stick with some people. Because
Mhm.
I have fans that are obsessed with specific characters and senators to this day. They're like, we just want them. So it's just really difficult for me on that end on the how to keep fans, how to keep readers and keep them engaged with even though I'm still writing and still have these other
Mhm.
books out there. So that's a difficult part for me as a writer. If
So
that
how,
makes sense.
yeah, so how has, with, you know, the pandemic, you know, impacted that engagement as well, without being able to, you know, physically go and be at, say, the
Cons or anything.
festivals or
Well,
the,
I've never been able to go to cons anyway. I've been to
yeah.
maybe no, I've only been to two book events.
Okay.
But um it is still difficult even in that sense, even without having to been able to go to big cons. Because I've never been able. I am an independent author,
Mhm.
even though Senators 1 and 2 are traditionally published. It's still traditionally published in the sense of independent writer. So everything I had to do was basically independent. I'm not backed by a traditional publishing house for those two books for the marketing of them. So I
Mhm.
couldn't get to any, kinds of anything through my publishers for those. Um, so it was difficult in that kind of sense. So that's situation is still difficult to this day with this pandemic. It's really hard. That's why you see now I'm starting to do more video interviews now to trying to remind people that hey, senators is still there. It was very popular sale when it first came out. You can
Mhm.
still grab it. You can still buy it. It's still a good read. I still have some books attached to it that's new. Um, grab it and read, discuss, big book talk, whatever. I'm here. Talk to me if you got questions. I do cute little author photo albums for the characters and everything. So website you can lose yourself all day in the website because I have little everything for all of my books because that's just how I am because I'm a book nerd in myself and that's
Mhm.
how before I became an author that's what the things I liked. So yeah.
And what you said about like like character photo albums, I think that's just something unique. How did you come up with that idea?
I guess it ties into who my characters are because like when I'm writing they talk to me and so when I see them and people don't get a grasp of the visual and that's a good thing because I
Mm-hmm.
want you all to envision them themselves. So I help it out a little bit by making those albums so you can get an aesthetic of the world I'm imagining. So that's how that came up.
And so not only are you an author, but you blog. Um,
I have. I'm not consistent at all. I am so bad at it. I'm not consistent at all, but I
oh
have.
my goodness. So, I mean, so does the blogging focus primarily, your blogs find, focus primarily on what you're writing or what you've written, or do you do kind of a mix, or have you
It's a,
done a mix of things with your blog?
it's a mix. Because every now and then you could probably see a little bit of like if I'm watching something on TV, like on my Facebook page. I have nothing but reviews now of TV shows and movies that I watch. On my main blog, that's on Blogger, I'm a little bit more diligent, but it's a mix. I talk a little bit about what I'm writing or what I've written or what I've been going through
Mhm.
in the month or a year. So yeah, of
Awesome.
any events that I've done and where I'm going to be. Yeah.
All right. So, with Ani's Tears, what is something that you hope that readers um, will take away? And we're encouraging those who are viewing live or who are going to watch the replay, that you definitely want to pick up this book and add it to your shelf, and dive into this story. So what is something that you hope readers will think about or take away?
I want you to basically lose yourself into the story. This is just about escapism. It is fun. It is, think of yourself as a child that wanted to see yourself in these kind of genres. That's what this is about. Well, that's what Honest Tears is about. Um, it's about family. It's about the prospects of love and trying to understand if you even want it. It's about discovering the world and traveling. That's why it's called a steampunk adventure. Um, it's just about fun. Um, demon slaying, big button, steampunk, flying in the air kind of stuff.
And so
Riding horses
to
and
get
things.
away in that kind of story and that
Yes.
kind of world is definitely something that is needed. That is needed. I mean, readers need to experience some fun and something that's gives them a sense of adventure and takes them to different places, and they're able to connect with a range of characters, feelings, and all those kinds of things, given what we're dealing with,
Exactly.
between COVID and vaccinations and wearing masks and
Yes.
you stay in 5 days, stay in 10 days, where, out in the open, or all of the different things that, you have to deal with. Are we virtual? Are we going into classrooms? So all these things
Exactly.
are, weighing on people, and, you know, so to have a story that you can get lost in, it's
With
a
a
good
touch of
thing.
historical elements in there too.
Yes.
Even though it's an alt reality, it is a touch of historical elements in there.
All right. And that's a good thing, just to, kind of pull us into those moments, that maybe we haven't even thought about or read about since being in school. You know? So having those little bits of history tied in, that's also a good thing as well. Um, for those in our audience, because we do get a lot of persons in our audience who, are aspiring writers or who dabble, in writing. Um, so what would what are some nuggets or words of wisdom that you can give aspiring writers, especially, those who are looking to jump into or diving into, speculative fiction or into romance, even if they just have an idea or starting the writing process?
First of all, I am here. You can reach out to me at my website anytime you want to. Inbox me at my website. Again, at my
All
website.
right, you heard it here. Inbox her. And speaking of, connecting to Kai, how can viewers, get your book and connect with you and follow you on social media and all that good stuff?
You can find me at www.kyleaks.com. You can find me at Facebook. You can find me at Twitter. For the writers that want some inspiration, if you write what you love, if you can't write it out, keep thinking about it and read. It's imagination is wonderful and it's comforting. So hold on to it and don't discourage yourself, because I know what it is like to get stuck on the wall and not be able to write at all. I just rely on my imagination to comfort me, knowing that I still got the ticker, I still got the grease there, even if I can't physically write, and that's okay. As I said, you can find me at www.colleagues.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that, and email me if you want to. Inbox me at my website.
All right. We want to thank our guest, Kai Leaks, for spending time with us this afternoon. We wish you continued success with not only Honest Tears, but all of your writing across genres. with the speculative fiction, the romance, the fantasy, all of the things, because you're doing all of the things. So we want
A little bit
to
of me.
we
All of
want
it
to
is a little bit of me.
continue to support you and wish you well in all of your writing. I'm so glad that we were able to connect and really introduce, you to a new audience and just the genre itself and what you're doing. So we're so glad that you were able to spend this time with us this afternoon.
So glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Monica, and reaching out to me. Again, you were a surprise. A welcome surprise.
That's awesome. So, mate, we want to tell our live and replay viewers to make sure you're staying tuned to the Farside Co-ed Book Club Facebook page for more author interviews and posts as we celebrate wonderful winter writing in the month of January. And then we've got coming up, you want to um, connect to our authors, our HBCU authors. We want you to sign up for our interview here. So we want to highlight our HBCU writers and authors, alumni, those who are current students. If you're writing and you're publishing and you got a story to tell, we want to catch you here on the far side, especially in the month of February was hit it hard on Black History Month. So we want to include your works and highlight your stories. So, you see the link scrolling across your screen. Hit me up. This Monica Leak on on Instagram, Twitter, M Leak Poetry on Instagram and Twitter and on Facebook, so we can get you in for an interview. And we again thank Kylie for joining us today. And you see all of her contact information. Reach out to her, follow her on social media, and pick up the book. Okay, this is January. If you're connected to Goodreads or you do any of those challenges, you probably set a goal. If you set a goal, you need to add this book to the goal that you set in Goodreads, or let it be fulfill one of your challenge reads. If you do like Pop Sugar and some of the other challenge reads, I'm sure that Ani's Tears fits one of those categories for your
Please
challenge.
leave all the reviews.
All right. So you so you want to be sure that you pick up this book. Again, thanks Kai for being with us
Thank you,
on today.
Monica.
And to our audience, remember, many roots, many voices are a part of the infinite story. So plant your seed. Until next time, we say goodbye.
Bye.